She was a mail-order bride who never smiled at first. Cowboy made it his mission to see her smile. Anna stepped off the small airplane and felt the dry Texas wind hit her face. She clutched her single suitcase tightly, unsure whether it was the nervousness or excitement making her hands tremble. She had never traveled this far from home before, and the vastness of the airport, the strange faces, and the chatter in a language she was still learning made her feel small and fragile. The man who greeted her was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing worn jeans, cowboy boots, and a dusty hat pulled low over his eyes. His name was Jake. His eyes were warm, but his expression was calm and measured. He offered a hand to help with her suitcase, and Anna hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She was polite, though the words she wanted to say seemed to hide behind a wall she had built around herself. The ride from the airport to the ranch was quiet. Jake drove slowly, navigating long stretches of road lined with wide fields of dry grass, the occasional tumbleweed drifting by. Anna pressed her forehead to the window, absorbing everything in silence. She had imagined America many times before, bright lights, busy cities, but this was different. This was quiet, open, and lonely in a way she could feel in her chest. Jake tried to start a conversation, offering small comments about the weather, the ranch, and the town they were passing. But Anna only nodded or smiled faintly. Words felt heavy for her, especially in a language that was not her own. She was polite, but her eyes held shadows from a past she had not shared with anyone. When they arrived at the ranch, the sun was setting. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, reflecting off the wooden fences and the wide barn doors. Anna stepped out of the car and took a deep breath. The air smelled of horses, hay, and earth, a scent so different from the city she had left behind. Her suitcase thudded softly on the gravel and she hesitated, unsure what to do next. Jake opened the door to the main house. It was a simple, one-story building, but well kept. The porch had a swing and the windows were wide, letting in the last light of the day. "This will be your room," Jake said softly, gesturing toward the house. "Dinner will be ready in a bit." Anna followed him silently, setting her suitcase down in a small, neat bedroom. She looked around. The walls were painted a soft cream and there was a simple bed with clean sheets. A small dresser stood against the wall. Everything was new, but there was a warmth to the place, a feeling that someone cared. She touched the window frame and looked outside. The fields stretched endlessly, and the last light of the day seemed to rest on the land like a golden blanket. She heard Jake calling from the kitchen. Anna swallowed her nerves and stepped out. The kitchen smelled of bread baking and warm stew. Jake smiled and gestured toward the table. He was quiet, but there was a kindness in his manner. "Eat something," he said simply. Anna nodded and sat down. The food was simple, hearty, and tasted better than anything she had eaten in weeks. She had learned to survive on simple meals during her long journey, but this felt like more than survival. It felt like a small touch of home she had never had before. After dinner, Jake showed her around the ranch. He explained where the horses were kept, where the cows grazed, and how the irrigation system worked. Anna listened carefully, nodding and trying to remember everything. She wanted to belong, but the silence between them was noticeable. Jake didn't push her, though. He understood she needed time. That night, as she lay in bed, Anna stared at the ceiling. The house was quiet, the wind whispering through the trees outside. She thought about her past, about the family she had left, the struggles she had endured, and the long months of preparation that had brought her here. She felt a mixture of fear and hope. Could this really be a fresh start? Could she find happiness in a place so far from everything she had ever known? The next morning, she woke to the sound of roosters and the soft lowing of cows. The sun was bright, filling her room with light. She dressed quickly, her movements careful, and stepped outside. Jake was already in the yard, feeding the horses. He looked up and smiled briefly, tipping his hat. Anna returned a small smile, unsure if it was real yet, but it felt like the first small connection she had made. Breakfast was quiet. Jake talked about the chores for the day, giving Anna small tasks to help her adjust. She swept the barn floor, fed the animals, and carried water buckets. It was hard work, but it grounded her. The rhythm of the ranch, the repetitive tasks, and the responsibility felt like something she could understand. Each action, though simple, was a step toward feeling like she belonged. Days turned into weeks. Anna remained quiet, but she began to notice small details. The way the sun glinted off the fence posts in the morning, the smell of fresh hay after it rained. the sound of the horse's hooves on the dirt path. Jake was patient, always nearby but never forcing conversation. Sometimes he would tell her a small story about the ranch or about his childhood growing up on this land. Anna listened, intrigued but still hesitant to speak about herself. The townspeople were curious about Anna. She went to the local store with Jake once, and people whispered about the new bride who never smiles. Children stared, some shyly waving. Anna nodded politely but did not smile. The world around her was friendly yet foreign. She felt like a visitor in someone else's life, watching from a distance. One evening, Jake took her to the pasture. The sky was clear and the stars were so bright it took her breath away. "Look," he said softly, pointing up. "You don't see this in the city, do you?" Anna shook her head, her eyes wide. For the first time, words seemed easier. She whispered, "It's beautiful." Jake nodded, pleased with her small gesture. Slowly, Anna began to share small stories about her childhood. She spoke of the winters in Ukraine, the long walks in the snow, the quiet streets of her village. She did not speak of the pain she had endured, it was still too heavy. But Jake listened, never judging, never pushing. He understood that trust was earned slowly, and he was willing to wait. Despite her silence, Jake found himself drawn to her. There was a quiet strength in her, a resilience that shone through even in her reserved nature. He admired the way she approached each task with care, the way her eyes followed the horses as if she understood them without words. He wanted to make her laugh, to see her smile, and he made it a silent mission. As weeks passed, Anna began to relax slightly. She laughed softly when the horse nudged her unexpectedly. She smiled faintly when Jake made a small joke. It was a small victory, but it mattered. Each day, the wall around her heart grew a little thinner. One afternoon, a storm rolled in. The wind howled across the fields and rain pelted the windows. Anna watched from inside the barn, tense and anxious. Jake noticed and came to her side. "It's okay," he said gently. "The horses are safe." She nodded, her shoulders relaxing slightly. In that moment, she realized she trusted him. By the end of the first month, Anna had begun to feel a sense of belonging she had never imagined possible. The ranch, the animals, the quiet town, and the man who had welcomed her, these were becoming parts of her life. She still did not smile often, but she felt something new stirring inside her, hope. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the wind and the distant call of an owl, Anna realized that she was not alone. For the first time in a long time, she felt the possibility of happiness. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that Jake's quiet patience, his kindness, and his unwavering presence were helping her discover it. Anna woke to the soft sounds of the ranch, the lowing of cows, the neigh of horses, and the distant crowing of a rooster. The sun poured through her window, warming her face. Today felt different. She did not know why, but there was a small flutter of anticipation inside her chest. Maybe it was the thought of another day on the ranch, or maybe it was the quiet presence of Jake, who had become more than just the man who brought her here. He had become a part of her new life. She dressed quickly, tying her hair back so it would not fall into her face while working. Breakfast was already being prepared, and the smell of fresh eggs and toast filled the small kitchen. Jake was there, humming softly as he moved around. He greeted her with a nod and a gentle smile, one that seemed to say, "Good morning," without needing words. Anna poured herself some coffee, taking small sips. The warmth of the cup seemed to chase away some of the lingering nervousness from the night before. She had learned to appreciate these simple things, the quiet mornings, the smell of cooking, the way the sunlight fell across the wooden floor. It was a rhythm, a pattern, a small comfort in a world that had often felt unpredictable and harsh. After breakfast, Jake handed her a list of chores for the morning. It was a simple routine, but Anna found herself enjoying it. She fed the horses, brushing their shiny coats carefully, and even spoke a few words to them in the small English she knew. The horses nuzzled her hands, and for a brief moment she felt a connection, not just with the animals, but with the land and the life she was beginning to inhabit. Jake watched her quietly from a distance. He did not hover or give instructions unnecessarily. Instead, he offered a gentle presence, a reassurance that she was not alone. Sometimes he would chuckle softly at her careful movements or offer a word of praise. "Good job, Anna. That horse likes you." She would smile faintly, a small curl of her lips that made his heart lift. The afternoons were spent working in the fields or repairing fences. Anna had never done manual labor like this before, and her muscles ached in ways that were unfamiliar. But there was something satisfying about the work. The rhythm of her hands, the feel of the soil, the sense that she was contributing to something meaningful. And all the while, Jake worked beside her, steady, patient, never rushing her, never making her feel small for her lack of experience. Sometimes they talked. Their conversations were slow at first, careful. Anna would answer in short sentences, her accent soft but deliberate. She told Jake small things about her life, how she had grown up in a village, how she loved drawing as a child, how the winters in Ukraine were long and quiet. Jake listened attentively, asking questions but never prying. He shared stories of his own childhood, the chores he had to do, the way his father had taught him to ride and care for the land. These stories, small and unassuming, began to build a bridge between them. One day, Jake suggested they take a break and sit under the big oak tree near the barn. The shade was cool, and a soft breeze rustled the leaves. He handed her a cold bottle of water and watched as she drank, the sun glinting off her hair. "You've done a lot today," he said softly. Anna looked at him, unsure what to say. She nodded, feeling the exhaustion of hard work but also a quiet pride. "You're getting stronger," Jake said with a smile. "I can tell you're learning fast." Anna felt a small warmth rise in her chest. Compliments were not easy for her to receive, but she accepted it with a shy nod. The silence that followed was comfortable, not heavy. They just sat there, listening to the wind and the distant sounds of the ranch. As the days went by, Anna began to notice little things about Jake. The way he laughed quietly when a horse acted silly. The way he always remembered to bring her a warm cup of coffee in the morning. The way he respected her space, never pressing her to talk or smile before she was ready. These small gestures meant more to her than words could express. They were gestures of kindness, patience, and understanding, the very things she had been missing in her life for so long. One afternoon, Anna tried something new. She had brought her sketchbook with her from Ukraine, unsure if she could draw the animals or the land, but wanting to try. She sat under the shade of the oak tree, pencil in hand, and began to sketch the horses grazing nearby. The lines were shaky at first, but as she continued, the shapes became clearer. Jake watched from a distance, leaning against the fence, giving her the freedom to create without interruption. When she finally showed him her drawing, he smiled warmly. "That's amazing," he said simply. "You really have a gift." Anna's cheeks flushed, a mix of pride and embarrassment. She looked down, hiding the faintest hint of a smile. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was a start. Evenings were the hardest for Anna. The quiet of the ranch at night made her mind wander to memories she preferred to forget. Sometimes she would sit by the window, staring out at the fields, feeling the weight of loneliness press against her. But Jake always seemed to sense when she needed comfort. He would leave small notes on the kitchen table or knock gently on her door, offering a word of encouragement or a quiet presence. He never intruded, but his attentiveness reminded her that she was not alone. The town was slowly becoming familiar to her. She ventured into the small general store once or twice, sometimes with Jake, sometimes on her own. People were polite, some even friendly, though their curiosity was clear. "She's the new bride," they whispered. Anna felt the sting of being different, but she also felt a sense of resilience growing inside her. She had come so far, and she was learning to navigate this new life, step by step. One weekend, Jake invited her to help prepare for a local festival. Anna had never participated in anything like it before. Together, they decorated a small stand with handmade items and simple flowers. She helped string lights, paint signs, and arrange displays. The festival was bustling with people, laughter, music, and the smell of freshly baked goods. Anna felt a nervous excitement. She was part of this community now, even if only a small part, and that realization made her heart beat a little faster. During the festival, a child ran up to her holding a small flower. "For you," the child said shyly. Anna accepted it, smiling gently. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental. For the first time, she realized that her presence here mattered to someone else. She wasn't just a visitor, she was beginning to belong. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Anna and Jake deepened. They shared quiet moments in the fields, long walks along the dirt paths, and evenings sitting on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Jake's patience, his quiet encouragement, and his consistent presence were slowly helping Anna to open her heart. She still did not smile easily, but her laughter became more frequent, soft, and musical, like a bird testing its wings. One rainy afternoon, they were in the barn, securing the animals. The rain came down hard, drumming against the roof. Anna flinched at the sudden noise, and Jake came to her side. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm here." His calm presence was reassuring, and she felt a small smile tug at her lips. It was brief, almost accidental, but Jake noticed. He smiled back, quietly proud. That evening, after the rain had passed, they walked along the muddy paths, the air fresh and cool. Anna laughed softly as her boots slipped slightly in the mud, and Jake caught her hand to steady her. "See," he said with a grin, "you're stronger than you think." Anna laughed again, a sound that was lighter and freer than it had been weeks ago. She felt the first real sense of joy in this new life. Anna's confidence grew little by little. She began to speak more, offering her thoughts and opinions, asking questions and sharing small stories from her past. Jake listened patiently, encouraging her without judgment. Each word she spoke, each small smile, was a step toward healing and connection. By the end of the season, Anna had changed in ways she herself barely recognized. The shy, reserved girl who had arrived months ago was now more confident, more willing to embrace life, and more connected to the people and the land around her. Jake's quiet mission, to see her smile, was no longer about a single gesture. It was about helping her rediscover joy, trust, and the simple pleasures of everyday life. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the fireflies dance across the fields, Anna turned to Jake. She smiled, fully and openly, without hesitation. It was a smile that carried warmth, gratitude, and a newfound sense of hope. Jake reached for her hand, and they sat together in silence, content in the understanding that words were not always necessary. The bond they shared was stronger than any spoken sentence, built on patience, kindness, and the quiet rhythm of a shared life. Anna realized that she had found something she had never truly known before, a sense of home, not just in a place, but in a person who saw her, understood her, and valued her for who she was. And in that realization, she felt a happiness that was real, deep, and lasting. The spring air was fresh and warm, carrying the scent of blooming wildflowers and freshly turned earth. Anna had grown accustomed to the rhythm of ranch life, but today felt different. There was a lightness she hadn't felt before, a quiet anticipation that made her heart beat a little faster. She woke early, listening to the soft sounds of the morning, the cooing of pigeons, the low hum of distant tractors, and the occasional neigh of a horse. She felt alive in a way she hadn't thought possible months ago. Breakfast was quiet but comfortable, the aroma of scrambled eggs and fresh bread filling the kitchen. Jake had already started preparing for the day's chores. He smiled at her as she poured a cup of coffee. "Ready for a busy day?" he asked, his voice calm and easy. Anna nodded, feeling a small thrill at the thought. Work had always been tiring, but it was satisfying too, and today she felt eager rather than reluctant. The morning was spent tending to the fields and animals. Anna worked with a steady focus, her movements confident and sure. She carried water buckets to the horses, brushed their coats, and fed the cows. Each task was simple, but it held a rhythm that grounded her. She noticed small details, the glint of sunlight on the wet grass, the way the horses' tails swished in the breeze, the sound of her own boots crunching on the dirt. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged in this world, even if only in small ways. Jake watched her quietly from a distance. He was used to hard work, but he had never seen someone approach it with such careful attention and respect. "You're doing great," he said softly, walking over to help her lift a particularly heavy bucket. Anna smiled faintly at his words, a small curve of her lips that carried a new kind of warmth. It wasn't just politeness, it was real. As the day went on, Jake suggested they take a break under the big oak tree near the barn. The shade was cool and inviting, and the breeze rustled the leaves softly. Anna sat down, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand, and Jake handed her a bottle of water. "You've been working hard," he said. "I think you deserve a rest." Anna nodded, feeling grateful for his thoughtfulness. She realized that these small gestures mattered more to her than words could express. While they rested, Jake began to tell her a story about his childhood. He spoke of long summer days spent riding horses across the fields, learning how to fish in the small creek behind the barn, and helping his father repair fences. Anna listened intently, her eyes wide with interest. She had never had a childhood like his, and yet she felt a strange comfort in hearing about it. She realized that stories could be bridges, ways to connect, to understand, and to feel less alone. Curious, Anna began to share small fragments of her own past. She spoke of the winters in her village, the long walks through snow-covered streets, and the evenings spent drawing by candlelight. She didn't speak of the hardships she had endured. Those memories were still too heavy to carry aloud. But she shared the simple joys, and for the first time, Jake saw glimpses of the girl she had once been, the part of her that still held wonder and hope. The afternoon brought unexpected excitement. A sudden storm rolled in, dark clouds covering the sky and a sharp wind whipping across the fields. The horses became restless, and Anna's heart raced as she watched them pace in their pens. Jake noticed her tension and came to her side. "It's okay," he said gently. "We'll make sure everyone's safe." Together they moved quickly, securing the animals and checking the fences. Anna felt her fear rise and fall with each task, but Jake's calm presence was a steady anchor. In the chaos, something remarkable happened. One of the horses nudged Anna unexpectedly, and she laughed nervously, the sound breaking through the tension. It was a small laugh, hesitant and soft, but it was the first true expression of joy she had shown in months. Jake looked at her, a proud smile spreading across his face. "See," he said softly, "you're stronger than you think." Anna laughed again, this time more freely, feeling a warmth inside her chest that she hadn't felt before. After the storm passed, the sky cleared, revealing a brilliant rainbow stretching across the fields. Jake suggested they walk through the pasture to admire it. Anna agreed, holding her sketchbook in one hand and Jake's hand in the other. The colors of the rainbow reflected in her eyes, and for a moment the past and its hardships seemed to fade. She realized that life, even with its challenges, could hold beauty. Over the next few weeks, Anna's laughter became more frequent. Small things like a horse's playful nudge, a child waving in the town, or the way the sun set over the fields brought genuine smiles to her face. Jake noticed each one, quietly proud that she was beginning to let happiness in. He didn't force it, he simply shared his life with her, giving her the space and time she needed to heal. One evening, Jake suggested they try something new. He had found a small corner of the ranch where the soil was soft and perfect for planting flowers. "I thought we could start a little garden," he said, smiling. Anna's eyes lit up with excitement. She had loved gardening as a child, and the idea of planting something that could grow and bloom was appealing. They spent the evening digging, planting, and watering together. Anna laughed as the dirt got under her nails, and Jake chuckled at her enthusiastic energy. The next morning, Anna woke early to check the garden. She smiled as she saw the small sprouts pushing through the soil. It was a small sign of life and hope, a reminder that growth often came slowly but surely. Jake joined her, handing her a watering can. They worked in silence, their hands occasionally brushing, and each touch felt comforting and grounding. As spring turned to early summer, the bond between Anna and Jake deepened further. They shared long walks along the fields, exploring hidden corners of the ranch, and talking about dreams and hopes for the future. Anna felt herself opening up in ways she hadn't thought possible. She spoke of the art she wanted to create, the places she wanted to visit, and even her fears. Jake listened patiently, offering gentle guidance and encouragement. One afternoon, a local child ran up to Anna with a small handmade bracelet. "For you," the child said shyly. Anna accepted it, her eyes filling with tears of gratitude. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world. She realized that she was no longer just a visitor in this town. She was becoming a part of the community, a person who mattered to others. The first real, heartfelt laughter came one day while she and Jake were mending fences. A young calf had wandered too close and startled them both. Anna let out a laugh so genuine and free that even Jake couldn't help but laugh too. It echoed across the fields, a sound of pure joy. She looked at Jake, and for the first time she smiled fully without hesitation or fear. It was a smile that carried warmth, trust, and the beginnings of love. From that day on, Anna's smiles became more natural. They weren't forced or fleeting. They were reflections of her growing confidence, her sense of belonging, and the bond she shared with Jake. She still had moments of hesitation, memories that weighed on her heart, but they were no longer as heavy. With Jake by her side, she felt safe, understood, and valued. Evenings were spent on the porch, watching the sun set and the stars appear one by one. Anna would rest her head on Jake's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. She realized that happiness didn't have to be loud or grand. It could be quiet, simple, and shared with someone who truly cared. Jake's mission, to see her smile, had grown into something deeper. It was no longer just about a gesture. It was about helping Anna rediscover life, trust, and joy. Each laugh, each small expression of happiness was a victory for both of them. And in the process, they were creating a bond that went beyond words, beyond circumstances, and beyond the hardships of the past. Anna began to notice how much she looked forward to each day. The chores, the animals, the sun on her face, and the quiet companionship of Jake made her feel alive. She realized that she was learning to live fully again, to embrace the beauty and simplicity of everyday life. The ranch was no longer just a place. It had become her home. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together under the oak tree, the sky painted with shades of orange and pink. Anna rested her head on Jake's shoulder and smiled. It was a smile that reflected gratitude, hope, and the beginnings of love. She whispered softly, "Thank you for being patient with me." Jake smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Always," he said simply. The days continued in this rhythm, each one bringing new moments of joy, trust, and connection. Anna laughed more freely, spoke more confidently, and smiled without fear. The walls she had built around her heart were slowly coming down, brick by brick, replaced by trust, warmth, and the understanding that she was no longer alone in the world. For Anna, the transformation was profound. She had arrived at the ranch timid, uncertain, and guarded. Now she was beginning to embrace life, to find happiness in the small things, and to trust in the love and patience of the man who had welcomed her. And as the summer approached, she felt a deep sense of belonging she had never known before, a feeling that this land, this life, and this man were now part of her story, forever intertwined with her heart. Summer had fully arrived on the ranch. The fields were golden under the bright sun, the crops swaying gently in the warm breeze. Anna had grown so used to the rhythm of ranch life that she hardly remembered how lost and timid she had felt when she first arrived. Now she woke each morning with a sense of purpose and anticipation, ready to face the day with strength and even a quiet excitement. Life felt full, rich with possibilities she had never imagined. Breakfast that morning smelled of fresh pancakes and honey. Jake was already at the kitchen table, flipping through a notebook filled with plans for the day. "Morning, Anna," he said with a gentle smile, looking up as she entered. "I thought we could start with some work in the garden today, then move on to the barn chores." Anna smiled in return, a smile that was genuine and easy, the kind that came from deep inside rather than being forced. As they stepped outside, the warm sun kissed her face, and she took a deep breath of the fresh, open air. The garden was thriving, flowers in full bloom, their colors bright and cheerful. Anna's hands worked confidently in the soil, planting a few new seeds, watering the flowers, and carefully arranging small stones along the paths. Jake worked beside her, sometimes reaching to brush dirt from her hands, other times laughing quietly at her jokes. The ease between them was natural, a reflection of weeks spent together building trust, friendship, and something deeper. After the garden, they moved to the barn. Anna fed the animals with practiced movements, brushing the horses, shiny coats, and speaking softly to them as she worked. She laughed when a young foal nipped playfully at her sleeve, and Jake chuckled at her reaction. He loved seeing her laughter. It had grown more frequent, richer, and full of warmth. Every small smile, every laugh was a gift to him, a sign of how far she had come since arriving at the ranch months ago. The afternoons were often quiet, moments for reflection and small adventures. That day, Jake suggested they ride horses to a nearby hill where they could see the sunset. Anna hesitated at first. She had ridden horses before, but never in such open, unfamiliar spaces. Jake sensed her hesitation but did not press. "It will be fun," he said gently. "I'll be right beside you." Anna nodded, and together they mounted their horses, feeling the rhythm of the animals beneath them. As they rode across the fields, Anna felt a freedom she had not known before. The wind whipped through her hair, and the golden light of the late afternoon bathed the land in warmth. She laughed as her horse trotted over a small rise, the sound carrying across the fields. Jake glanced at her, a proud, quiet smile on his face. Her happiness had become his own, a reflection of the bond that had grown between them. At the top of the hill, they stopped to watch the sun sink below the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple, the colors reflecting on Anna's face. She felt a deep sense of peace, a feeling of being exactly where she was meant to be. For the first time, she fully understood what it meant to belong somewhere, not just to a place, but to a life, a community, and to someone who cared deeply for her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jake said softly, his voice almost lost in the gentle breeze. Anna nodded, her eyes bright with wonder. "Yes," she replied, "I've never seen anything like this before." Jake reached for her hand, and she took it without hesitation. Their fingers intertwined naturally, a silent promise of trust and companionship. The weeks continued in a happy rhythm. Anna became more involved in the community, attending small-town events and helping with local projects. People who had once whispered about the new bride who never smiled now greeted her warmly, noticing the change in her demeanor. She laughed with children, shared stories with neighbors, and even taught a few small art lessons to young girls in the town. Her presence became a bright, welcoming light, and she felt a sense of pride and belonging she had never known before. At the ranch, their evenings were often spent on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. Anna would rest her head on Jake's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the comfort of his warmth. She realized that happiness didn't need to be grand or complicated. It could be quiet, simple, and shared with someone who truly cared. Each evening ended with gentle conversation, shared dreams, and a growing sense of love. One afternoon, Jake suggested they take a small trip to a nearby river. Anna agreed, excited by the idea of exploring more of the land she now called home. They packed a small lunch and rode their horses through fields and meadows, following the winding path toward the river. Anna felt exhilarated by the adventure, laughing as they crossed shallow streams and guided their horses carefully through rocky patches. She realized how much she had grown, how confident and capable she had become. At the riverbank, they unpacked their lunch and sat on the grass. The water sparkled in the sunlight, reflecting the trees and sky like a mirror. Anna dipped her fingers into the cool water, laughing at the sensation. Jake watched her, his heart full of affection. "You've changed so much," he said softly. "I've never seen you so happy." Anna smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "I feel alive," she said simply. "I've never felt this way before." Jake squeezed her hand gently, knowing that their journey together had been about more than smiles. It had been about healing, trust, and discovering the joy of life together. As summer deepened, Anna began to take on more responsibilities around the ranch. She helped Jake with bookkeeping, organized supplies, and even learned to repair small fences on her own. She felt proud of her accomplishments and appreciated the confidence that Jake encouraged in her. Every small task completed brought a sense of achievement, a reminder that she was capable and strong. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together under the oak tree, watching the fireflies dance across the fields. Anna felt a profound sense of peace and belonging. She had arrived at the ranch timid, guarded, and unsure of herself. Now she was confident, happy, and fully part of this life. She realized that happiness was not just about smiles. It was about connection, trust, and the love that had grown slowly but surely between her and Jake. "Jake," she said softly, turning to face him. "I never thought I could feel this happy." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I've always believed you could," he said. "You just needed time." Anna laughed softly, a sound full of joy and gratitude. It was a laugh that reflected months of healing, growth, and trust. The town had noticed the change in Anna. She was no longer the quiet, reserved bride who avoided eye contact and rarely smiled. She now greeted neighbors warmly, laughed with children, and participated fully in community events. People admired her resilience and the gentle way she carried herself. Anna realized that she had become a part of something larger than herself, a community, a family, a life filled with purpose and love. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna and Jake walked through the fields, hand in hand. The golden light illuminated the land, casting long shadows and creating a serene, magical atmosphere. Anna felt a deep sense of gratitude for everything: the land, the animals, the community, and especially the man who had patiently helped her rediscover joy. They reached the barn, and Jake suggested they sit on the porch for a while. Anna leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. They watched as the stars appeared, twinkling in the darkening sky. Anna realized that she had found home, not just in a place, but in a life and a person who had welcomed her fully and unconditionally. She felt safe, valued, and loved in a way she had never known before. Over the following weeks, Anna continued to embrace her new life with enthusiasm. She took pride in her work on the ranch, enjoyed her growing friendships in the town, and spent time with Jake, deepening the bond that had blossomed over months of shared experiences. Every day brought small joys: a flower blooming in the garden, a child waving hello, a horse nuzzling her hand, and each moment reminded her of how far she had come. One warm evening, as they watched the sun set in a blaze of orange and pink, Anna turned to Jake and smiled fully, without hesitation or fear. It was a smile that reflected trust, love, and gratitude. Jake reached for her hand, holding it gently as they sat together in comfortable silence. They did not need words. Their bond, built on patience, kindness, and shared experiences, spoke louder than anything they could say. Anna had arrived at the ranch as a quiet, cautious young woman, hesitant to trust, hesitant to smile. Now she was confident, joyful, and fully engaged in life. She laughed freely, spoke openly, and embraced the simple pleasures of her world. The love and patience that Jake had shown her had transformed not just her outlook, but her entire life. As the stars filled the sky, Anna realized that she had finally found a sense of home. A home not just in a place, but in a life filled with purpose, connection, and love. And in that moment, she knew that the journey she had begun months ago had led her to something far greater than she had ever imagined. A life full of joy, laughter, and the unwavering presence of someone who truly cared.